Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our 1 o'clock panel today, Building a Design Brand. We're lucky, very, very lucky, to have with us today designer John McClain. Let me tell you a little bit about John. He's the principal designer of the award-winning firm John McClain Design, with offices in Los Angeles, Orlando, and Las Vegas. And now Las Vegas. So John's work has been featured in numerous shelter publications and television programs. Aesthetically, John's style marries the genres of Hollywood Regency, Art Deco, and mid-century modern, all fused with a fresh elegance that results in his signature style, contemporary chic.
It's like I wrote this myself. Wow,
it does, right? So John has a new book out called The Designer Within, and we'll talk a little bit about that later as well. So welcome, John. I'm Liza Hausman. I'm the Vice President of Industry Marketing here at House Pro, and we're going to talk a little bit about the evolution of John and John McClain Design. So, John, why did we decide to have this conversation? Why is building a design brand something that, you know, any company should really be thinking about?
Yeah, and it is for any company, honestly. It's not just for design. I speak from a designer point of view, but it can apply to architects, to contractors, to anyone. So I think a brand is so important because you have to differentiate yourself between the competition, number one. So there's so many people in our industry. There's so many designers. There's so many architects. There's so many contractors. What do you do differently that sets you apart and makes you stand out, not only for marketing purposes, but for people to actually sign on the dotted line? And that's really, really important to hone in on that and try to stop being everything to everybody.
So maybe, you know, there are two things I want to talk about that I think to give folks some context. And the first is, tell us a little bit about the evolution of your role within your own company. Where did you start? What were you doing? And what are you doing now? And so what were some of the stops in between?
Well, and it's funny, you said principal designer. I've actually changed that title on my website and on all of my marketing because I pulled myself away from being so hands-on with design. And I really wanted to be the leader of my company and to kind of lead my team and think about forward-thinking things. And so I changed it to CEO and creative director, which was so funny because when I did that, it was actually not only a mind shift for everybody who was calling my company. They were like, okay, I know that I'm probably not going to work with John on every project, but also it was a mind shift for me because then I started to free myself up to think about other things as well. So that I mentioned that because it's such a small thing, but it's also a very critical part to my growth as a business owner and a business leader. But yeah, in the beginning, I wore every hat like we all do, right? We all do everything. We're cleaning the toilets. We're, meeting with clients. We're going everywhere. And it's just what it is, right? And that's what you do when you start out. And I did more of the task management versus more of the brand building in the beginning. And that was what I want everyone to remember, is that you need to start brand building from day one and not wait until, 15 years later, 5 years later, anything like that. Think about your brand from the beginning, and that will set you off on a path of success for future things. And that was really what if I could go back and tell my younger self one thing to change, it would be to think about my brand early on.
So that's interesting that you say that, to think about your brand. What do you think about your brand? Like, when you say think about your brand, what are some of the mental exercises that you've kind of gone through or that you've evolved with to think about your brand differently from just your design business?
Other than vodka and late nights crying? No, so much, honestly. Brand building is about not only knowing what your company stands for, but also knowing what you stand for, especially if you're a brand like myself that has my name on the line. And it's, I'm going to put this water bottle down because I'm very emotive and I don't want to splash water on you. So you have to figure out who you are first as a business owner and a leader in your company, and then bring that into your business. And so I always try to think about, what values do I have? What things are important to me? And then what things are important to my company? And then you should actually write those down and make a list of those things. And those become your mission statement. Eventually, those things will become your mission statement. Not that it doesn't evolve and change over time. It does, definitely. But if you have a path towards that evolution, and you're at least working on that brand building and what you stand for and what your company means to people, then that is what you're going to put out into the world, and that is what people are going to gravitate towards. And the funny part is, it not only brings the right people to you, it repels the wrong people from you when you are actually putting your brand out into the world. So when you are true to yourself and to your company, and you tell everybody what you stand for and what you value and what means a lot to you as a business owner, those right people will come to you, and the wrong people are like, no, I don't like that. That's not for me. And that's okay.
So that actually leads me to another question that I think is very related, and I think you've now touched on it on the customer side. But when you have a defined brand, or as you're thinking about your design brand, what does it impact? So, maybe you can elaborate a little on, okay, well, how does that impact my customers? How does that impact my team? How does that impact the deals that I do? How does it impact how I present myself? I mean, you have a new book out. Like, what are the ways that having and building a design brand are important for all these different elements of your business?
I mean, it's an underlying tone to everything that we do. So no matter if we're coming up with a new product, if we're working with a client, if we're marketing, if I'm doing this, right? So everything I do is an extension of my brand. And if you ever pull away from that and delineate from that, then you're going to lose a lot of the right people who should be working with you in your company. Again, no matter what company it is. Now, I will say this, even if you have team members, it's really important to give the same message to your team members, right? So they should also know your 30-second elevator pitch. They should also know the values of your company. They should also be able to sell your services to other people in the same way, because I can't be everywhere at one time. So it's important for me to pass that along to people who are the voice and the face of my company when I'm not there.
So tell me a little bit, and tell all of us a little bit about, what does it mean to build a design brand, in the sense of, like, I think when most people think, oh, I want to build a design brand, it's because it's something that's going to make you more marketable or make other people want to work with you or want a piece of what you do. So what are the goals? Like, what are your goals? Why, and how does building a design brand fit into your goals?
I mean, mine have changed over the years, right? And I think a lot of, and again, I'm speaking from the design point of view because that's what I know. I think a lot of people feel, oh, a television show is success, a book is success, or projects in this state are a success. But success really is what it is. It's a personal thing to everybody who is defining that, right? So you can't build your success on other people's dreams and other people's hopes and other people's, ambitions. You have to really build them on what you want. And I have spent years sort of redefining my success, and it has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with, multiple design firms, none of that stuff. It's almost more intrinsic to me. And that is what I feel comes out to my team members and what comes out to my clients. And it's just this relaxed state of mind that I like to be in that empowers me to be a better leader. And it also further defines my brand as this brand that is relatable and they can understand how they could work with us. And, I'm very transparent, as you know. We've talked about that. Like, I put everything out on the table. I don't hold anything back when it comes to presentations or pricing or anything, because my clients know that they can come to us for honesty and transparency, and I can lay my head on my pillow at night knowing that I did the right thing. So those are values that I mentioned about part of a brand. Those are values that we have as a company, is transparency, clarity, and honesty.
So I love that, and I love that you are really thinking about what makes you happy and how to define success in a way that makes you happy.
I mean, I'm old too, so that comes with age. So
always helps. And but as people think about, all right, so you've got the kind of brand values and sort of how you feel and how you sleep at night. But then, you've really evolved what the manifestations of your brand are with the design business, with a book, with a coursework. So maybe talk a little bit about, like, what are the different things that your brand has evolved into, and why did you make those choices, and how should people think about it?
I love that question, Liza. That's good. Okay, so in the beginning, I only I was laser focused on design only, right? So it was design. What can I do to be a better designer? Then I feel like once I mastered that, so to speak, I could move on to other things and be a bigger leader with my company, right? So that's what I did. So early on, I started to define my design aesthetic, my design style. And for designers and for any business, if you don't have a clear-cut definition of what you do, then you're just going to be designing for everyone. You're going to be the designer for the masses, and that's not what any of us want. So that evolution was like from that to setting bigger goals for myself. So the bigger goals were to move to a new market, to go from Orlando, Florida to Los Angeles, California, and to publish a book, and to I have online courses, as you mentioned. So now I'm really wanting to help other designers and other people in the industry to learn about what I did right and what I did wrong, and to sort of be that leader for other people too. So my arms are branching out into other things now, other than just, working strictly for my own company's purposes, to try to help other people grow their companies and do the same thing. And that's what makes me feel good.
I love it. So, and one of the things I love about you is you're willing to be warts and all about your experiences. So we've heard a lot about some of the specific good choices that you've made that have worked out. Maybe tell us a little bit about the bumps on the road towards building Design Brand. Where did it maybe get off course, and how did you right the ship?
Early on, it got off course. So it started when my very first client, I had no written agreement. I had no plan. I had no systems and processes. I had nothing. And this client ended up suing me. And so it was this horrible, horrible, horrible situation. Like, if any of you have heard this story on podcasts, I'm sorry, but I'll give you the gist of it, is that he sued me, and then I had to deliver all of the furniture to this person's home with an armed guard, because my attorney was scared for me that someone was going to harm me. So I don't think it can get any worse than that, I hope, for anyone else out listening. But from that point, I pulled myself together, and I had a 2-hour drive home from that particular meeting. And on that 2 hours, I realigned my entire company. I realigned exactly what I did wrong, what I did right, what I wanted to change. And I pointed the finger back at me. And as horrible as that situation was, and as much as I really loathed that client, I couldn't blame that person. The problem was myself. And that's where I really owned up to the fact that I set the standards for my company, and I set the direction for projects, and I wasn't doing that very well. So that was the catalyst for organization with my company, my 26-page agreement that I have now. It was all these things that are learning experiences to me that I don't want to happen to anyone else out there. And when I say it's a 26-page agreement, it really is. But that's because, again, I want clarity. I want people to know what to expect when they work with me. And we even start with a how we work document. So our how we work document is sent out before they even sign, so that they know whether they want to work with us or not. No texting on weekends, or no texting at all, no calls on weekends. We don't work on weekends. And none of our clients have any of our cell phones within my entire company. So it's those little things that I learned early on that I feel make me a successful business owner, and also has been a part of our brand too, with the clarity and the transparency aspect of it.
That makes sense. And that's obviously a very big trigger to make a change, right? That was a dramatic trigger that maybe people would like to avoid as a learning experience, right? That, yeah. How often do you stop, either yourself or as a team, to reflect on what you're doing? Is it built into your process? Do you make time to meditate? Like, how do you figure out whether you're, and kind of regroup on whether you're on track with a client at a business level? How do you treat that in your business?
Well, I do it weekly, frankly. I set time on my calendar to analyze the successes and failures of that week every Friday. That's my day to do that, because I don't take appointments. I don't do anything on Friday except work in the office. So that's my day to do that. then also monthly, I do another evaluation, and then we do an annual evaluation where I have the entire team, and then we all sit down, and then we all lay out everything that went well, went great, went bad, whatever last year, and then we make improvements from there. And I call it a design summit. It's an all-day event where we all sit down in the conference room or somewhere off-site, and we just talk about everything. And there's no phone calls happening, but it really does allow my team to feel valued as well and to have input in it. Because as much as I want to be a better leader, I'm not the person talking to every single client, and I want to know what clients are saying from there. And then we do a weekly team meeting as well with our whole team where we just sort of hit the highlights of the week. And I do that on a Wednesday because I feel like by Wednesday, I know what's happened early on, and then I have 2 days to correct anything that went wrong early on in the week.
So you talked about your team. I think one of the things that I hear often from designers is I can't scale, right? I'm only me. Like if I'm my brand, if I do the design, there's only one of me. There's only so much I can do, only so many projects, whether they're design projects or other external, design industry projects I can take on. How have you managed to, build a team or find a way to scale that allows your brand to grow when there's still only one John McClain?
Yeah, and that's so funny because going back, I probably wouldn't have named my company John McClain Design, but it's there, it's done, it's over. Because I did have bigger dreams of growing early on, but I didn't know that it would happen, kind of as quickly as it did. But so that's one little thing. But I don't know, like I call it diligent delegating with my team members, and so I delegate in a way that is very. I explain every detail, so I don't just say, for instance, please send me a blue sofa. I say a blue sofa with a track arm, and I want a plinth base, and seat height to be this. So when you're delegating to anyone else, and when you're growing your team, you can't expect them to bring back any more than what you ask them to bring to you. And so I learned early on that over communicating in that aspect has saved me a lot of trouble as well. And I don't really have to be as hands-on. Sometimes we'll go into the end of a project, and I walked for the photo shoot to help style it, and I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. I haven't seen any of this yet. So because I entrusted my team to make the right mistakes and to do the right thing and the wrong thing.
So they've learned your aesthetic.
Yes.
Okay, and so now you no longer have to do a lot of the legwork on the day-to-day design. You're still approving and overseeing design work, or where are you inserting yourself now?
Kinda, but also it's on a very high level. So we have a brainstorming meeting in the very beginning, and we talk about the direction of the project and where we want it to go. And then right before the big presentation, I just do a quick little review of what they're presenting what they will be presenting to the client, just to make sure that it all makes sense and that it all feels right. But I might change 1% of that, like maybe 1%, like not a lot at all, because I really spent a lot of time training my senior designer, for instance. For about a year and a half, she shadowed me, and I would probably say she's a better designer than me at this point, because she's really making great choices, and she's leading that team based upon things that she would select, which is also based upon things that I would select, which is also based upon my brand.
Got it. Then for their brand names, so you could evolve yourself to like JMD, right?
I know.
Right? There are things there.
I know.
You could become like the KFC, but not KFC, right?
Well, now I'm thinking like down the road, like whenever let's say I want to sell my company down the road, like so that's something that's where my brain is now. Is like if I do ever want to retire and sell my company, what would that name be? And would someone want to be called John McClain Design, or would they want to be called, JMD Interiors or something like that, right? So that's my brain is never ending with business planning and succession and things like that.
Got it. So tell me a little bit about how you spend your time then, if it's not on these day-to-day design projects. What do you do it all day, John? Tell us.
When I say I'm working on my business and not in my business, I really, really am. I'm coming up with new sales leads. I'm coming up with marketing. I'm doing things like this where I'm able to speak with people. And so I'm really embracing the side of my business that I'm good at and that I feel that only I can do in a way that I can do it. But and I'm working on my courses, and so I'm doing coaching for businesses who want to learn again more things about the business side of their companies, and I'm just having a ball coaching these designers and creatives and sort of, helping them along their journey as well. But it's when you pull yourself back and you get out of the weeds and you can be at that 30,000 foot view of everything, it's amazing how much time you have to dream bigger and to think bigger and to plan bigger and to come up with new service offerings that maybe you weren't even having before, or new divisions of your company. I would have never been able to take 18 months plus to write my book had I been in the weeds of working on design projects. So that was one thing that came out of that change of title from myself.
Got it. What are some of the things you're excited about that you're going to be able to do potentially in the future? Anything you're willing to share?
That is a good question.
Where does the brand go?
Yeah, I had a home furnishings line in the past, and I really love designing furniture, and I really love coming up with custom pieces. So my heart is in that, and I'm thinking that there will be a little foray back into furniture design and lighting design and a product design and that sort of thing. So that's where I am now. And then there's also some TV things that are in the works too, so that could possibly happen. But who knows? I'm just along for the ride, and I've never been more at ease and comfortable with my business and where I am right now with my company and with my team. And I'm just embracing it and loving it and looking forward to all these things that could happen.
That's super exciting. So if I were going to draw the spectrum line between creative and sort of analytical, where do you put yourself on that spectrum, John?
I am literally smack dab.
You're in the middle.
Yeah,
okay.
Because I'm literally left brain, right brain. And so I'm always thinking about marketing, and I'm always thinking about, I call it autopilot selling instead of always be selling. I call it APS instead of ABS, because I feel like if you're selling in a way that's very nonchalant and honest and just true to yourself, it just is on autopilot, and you emote that to other people, and then your brand will grow based upon, how you are putting yourself out there. So I always try to just be myself and to be open to things, but also if something doesn't happen, then it's okay, not meant to be.
Well, we talked about, a part of scaling, right, is putting the right people in place and training them right, but also processes. And I know, obviously you use House Pro, your team uses House Pro, and you're leverage it by Coastal. So talk a little bit about how, putting some of these left brain, right brain things in place kind of help you balance a business.
Well, you talked about how does one person do it, and I feel like House Pro was actually another team member that I hired early on, because it took a lot of the weight off of my shoulders when I was a one-man show, when I was a solopreneur. It just allowed clients to be able to log in and to check on things and to pay things and to approve things. And it just kept that ball rolling when I didn't have to be holding somebody's hand and taking them to an approval. They could do that at their leisure. So it's been a critical part for us, honestly. And, automation is a big part. Technology, for designers who don't embrace technology, I don't understand it, because it is literally the thing that can take hours off of your week if you embrace it and use it in the right way. Now, that being said, you should train yourself on how to use the things the right way. And so, all these great people here today can probably help us out with some of those questions, because there are so many things, for instance, inside of House Pro that I don't even know how to do yet, because there's so much there, frankly. And
you're delegating now, so other people on the team are learning them. You don't have to learn them.
My administrative assistant is learning all of that. So she's the one who is that expert. So we use Slack for internal communication. It's like an internal chat instant message thing, and we actually have a House Pro channel. They're called channels. So in that channel is where anything that, oh my God, hey, I learned this today, or this was a new tip that I learned, and then we share it with the whole group so that we all are informed. Or if there's a video that comes out, we'll plug that video into that channel and everybody can go and watch it. So it's kind of cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. That's very cool. So you've got this team now, you've got these things in place, but tell us a little how you got there. What were the key milestones from John the one-man show to John McClain Design today? When did you hire your first person? How did you think about these things that have now, enabled you to step away from the business? or the day to day?
Most people, I did it as a have-to situation, like, oh my God, I've got so many clients. What am I going to do? I have to hire someone. So that's where it started. That shouldn't be the way that it should happen. Okay. It should happen where you're sort of planning your future and you're planning how many clients you're going to have and you're forecasting. And then you should make sure that you should have enough money to pay that person and enough clients to substantiate that. But for me, it happened at about year 2 is when I hired my first employee. And I tell everybody who works for me even now, who works with me even now, I say, you're going to be doing everything. You're wearing every hat like I did in the beginning. There's no divas in this business. You're all going to contribute equally to whatever I need you to contribute to. And all of my team members, for instance, know something about every project, whether they're the lead on that project or not. They know enough to communicate with our clients on that project if the client were to call or have a question when the other lead was out. And that's something that I feel has also saved us for being, communicative over the years with our clients and kind of keeping the ball rolling with that. I started as a retail store. So I had a retail store with a design firm in the back. And then the retail was this big, and then it started going this big, and then this big, and the design office was bigger. And then I had that one vignette by the time I was done with the retail situation. And then our clients were just overwhelming us with new projects. And that's when I first started delegating and realizing that I don't have to be the person at every job site meeting, at every selection meeting. I don't have to be that person, because if you train people the right way, in the way that I would speak with clients and the selections that I would make and how I would handle a situation, then you have to trust that person to do that. And that was a little hard early on, but I've gotten so much better with that, and I've embraced it, and I allow them to make the mistakes and to correct the mistake. And they always come to me with a solution to the problem, not just the problem. That's what I've taught my team. And most of the time, the solution that they have is right on point. I like it.
And I know you've trained them to be representatives of your brand, right? With the clients, with every touch point. How much training goes into something like that with team members?
Well, again, my senior designer, she and I shadowed for about a year. She shadowed me, and then I feel like it comes, I have a whole training system for my team inside the office. So we have our employee handbook, and we have, things that I expect from them as a company. But also I spend a lot of time saying, hey, in our interview process, what is your favorite brands? What do you like? What are you, because if they're not in the aesthetic lane that we are, then they're not going to work well. If someone is trainable and if they can, jump into other avenues of design, that's okay. But if they're willing to be trained and willing to do that, but I always just make sure that we all have the mindset of learning. And I'll take an eager employee with a fire in their belly who's excited about design and excited about the business over someone who is like a perfect designer and who feels like they know everything. I'll take that person any day that's trainable and that really wants to learn.
Awesome. Well, we gathered some questions in advance to ask you that people want to know. So one was, what is your interview process for employees? And is there anything during that process versus training that, helps you make sure you're hiring someone that will represent your brand well? I
kind of treat my interview process like I do a new client in a way. So new clients, for instance, have a questionnaire that they complete before they are allowed to schedule the discovery call with us, which is our first interaction with them at all. I do the same thing with my potential team members. So I have a questionnaire. They fill that out. I find out if it's, along the same lines. Of course, I look at their history of where they're working now. Then I also, one thing that I've done that has worked so well is I require them to spend a day with a team member on a project, whether it's an install, whether it's a client meeting. They actually do a little shadowing before they actually are hired to work with us to make sure that we are a good fit. So, because it doesn't just mean talent, you have to also think about other employees and if those people are going to be happy working with that team member. And so I want to make sure everyone can get along on a human level before they are required to make selections together. So and by the time they do that little shadowing day of working with everybody, they know whether they want to work with me, and I know whether I want them to work with my company.
Got it. Interesting. All right. The next question that we got was, when you're you're building a design brand. Let's say you want to do these new lines of furniture, et cetera. Are you actively marketing yourself to partners, or is it more about kind of creating content and putting it out there and hoping people will reach out to you? Do you have a publicist? What are you doing to put all that together?
It's so lazy when people are just like, oh, I'm going to post on social media and wait for the world to come to me. Like, it happens every now and then, but not so much. And for marketing, for me, it's a mix of everything. It's digital marketing. We have a newsletter. We have a blog. We do in-person things. I do things like this. And so for me, it's not just one avenue. It's all that combined. And then in-person marketing is very, very important. So I will reach out to brands and say, hi, I love your appliances. Would you be willing to sponsor this project if, I gave you X, Y, and Z for that? If you come to the table to a brand or to any partner that you want to work with a plan in place, more than likely they're going to listen to you versus if you're just coming to them saying, hey, I want to work with you. And then they're like, well, in what aspect? How? But I always approach a brand or any sort of collaboration with a very distinctive list of deliverables that I'm going to bring to the table, what I'm going to give to them, and then what I want from that company as a result of what I'm giving to them. But, that is based upon social media is a part of that. And, all that's a part of it. But also it's much more than that. I don't just partner with any brand that I want something free from. I work with a brand that I love their product, that I love their customer service, that I can stand behind it and support it and tell my clients about it. And that is the partnerships that I want right now versus just taking something for the sake of taking something.
Got it. And how do you find the right contacts at the brands when you're interested?
Oh, and I didn't answer. Yes, I do have a publicist, by the way. So that was something that I added maybe 5 years ago now, I guess. And you can, again, on this avenue, you can have a publicist, but what do you do with what the publicist brings you? So you can get in a magazine, but what do you do with that feature once you're in the magazine? Do you tell other people about it? Do you put it on your website? Do you send it out to prospective clients? It doesn't just end with that one end goal of marketing. Marketing there's so many avenues of it, and there's so much content that you can pull from a feature or a blog post and things like that. So to get to those people, sometimes it's the publicist, and sometimes literally it's just going to trade shows like this. And I literally walked up to the booth and I introduced myself and say, hi, I love your product. I would love to work with you one day. Let's talk about some potential with that. And a lot of times it could be at a showroom opening. If a showroom, for instance, having a appliance showroom, for instance, is having a grand opening, they invite me. I can go and meet people there and kind of get, in touch with the marketing people that way. But again, I do it very nonchalantly. I'm not a hardcore salesperson. I do it in a way that is approachable and that will let them know what they get from that relationship, not just what I'm getting from that relationship.
Awesome. Well, John, this has been amazing. Is there any kind of one piece of closing advice along these lines, an investment you've made, a partner you've put in place where you'd say, hey, this kind of thing could be a turning point and it's worth spending time on?
I just want everybody to get comfortable being uncomfortable and to get comfortable with growth and to get comfortable with industry changes and to get comfortable with economy changes. It's all going to be doing this, and it's all about how we pivot and how we navigate that and how we can put our head in the sand and never grow, or we can take that as an opportunity to find a new avenue of growth within our business. And so the growth is part of that uncomfortableness, but it's also kind of fun.
I love it. Thank you so much, John. This was amazing. I'm sure it'll be a huge value to so many designers out there.
So.
And thank you again.